we grew the third week of last year. So week 3 we have 2 rounds Tuesday, so then I got to I love career guys. It'll be their first group. They're going to be like, students have been she's working over at Equinox. She's coming in. What's that? Oh, she is. How are you? Oh man, with the one where? Oh, that's right. Right. Glad you're here. Nice to see you, man. Yeah, you too. How are you?
Another lifetime.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, doing good. Different adventures.
Yeah, so you're an AD.
Yeah, now I'm just we do warehouse. We do we're
I kind of lost touch with supplier down there who does digital printing and stuff. You do crawlers?
We don't.
You just do the printing part?
Yeah, we do. So, I mean, like, we're kind of limiting what we do right now, but we do just 16 containers. So, but we would do anything needed in those workers. And then we're doing all the archery, yeah, and Cody, down there, and then we usually work with a local German company or yeah, let us know if you can be involved. So it is not
about a year before, and then he left. It's hard. Sometimes, I say a hindrance, that's my job to teach them, is tell them what to do, you know what I mean? So that does take a couple of years, and I'm there to take it on well. Yeah, I mean, that was probably, but I think it's keeper because the stakes are lower, and from before, yeah. But we have the iterations, so you can do it over and over again. In a team, they can all figure it out. Do what it yeah, they were great. Somebody get the whole thing. Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. All that is talking about half the second group. Oh, that's awesome. It's awesome.
Testing.
Just hang out.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started pretty soon. Do I need it?
Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, New Belgium, for hosting us. Really stoked you're all here. Like I said. Just a reminder about our expected behavior policy. We're dedicated to providing a harassment-free conference experience for everyone, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, or religion. Please be nice to everybody. Thank you. I'm going to invite Eric up here to talk a few minutes about scholarships.
A few minutes.
Yep. It's my breathing time.
Fast fire.
We actually don't have a ton of scholarship news. We did award a scholarship this year. I believe that class is complete now. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to check back in with Chris. But as a reminder, the district sponsors a full scholarship every year. Last year we actually did 2 full scholarships for the MBAA courses. There's 3 main courses that you can apply for, but there's also a variety of other courses and classworks and stuff out there that if you feel strongly about going into next year, I would highly encourage you to apply. This is technically a not-for-profit organization, right? We're trying to, we collect money, but we want to be giving it out. We want to be benefiting the Rocky Mountain District brewing community, and we can only do that if people apply. We do have some discretionary scholarships to give out, so if you have a small something that you need a scholarship for, please reach out to myself, the RMD, Gmail. I don't know.
RMD MBAA at gmail.com.
But yeah, in case you didn't hear Shay, you can ask her later about it.
You get a lot of emails from it.
Otherwise, we hope to have some exciting news on the pseudo scholarship front about some books and library stuff coming up soon. We know that that's in the works, but it's just a continued demonstration from the RMD district to support you guys who support us. So I think it's it. Thank you.
See, that was 3 minutes. Big shout out to our sponsors. Again, we've got Z Loeffler and Biomeria. They're the reasons why we get beer. We're able to buy Music City hot chicken. We're able to be here. So big shout out to them. And we have our next destination meeting planned. So this will be the 4th year of our out-of-towner. It's always a blast. This year is going to be in Salida at Elevation Beer Co. So keep an eye out for more details there. It's the weekend of September 27th. I believe that's the Saturday. So everybody kind of shows up Friday if you can. We'll have a happy hour and then all day learning and festivities Saturday. Awesome. Our presenter tonight is going to be Jeff Biegert here from New Belgium, also over at CSU, and so we're really excited to have him here. He's going to be speaking on clarification and clarify a little bit of that. Oh, we want to do that first? Yeah. Sorry, real quick. So one of our RMD members, Dave, got the MBA Nationals Honor Scholarship. So we would love to get a picture with him. We were thinking about doing this outside if we're all willing to relocate real quick and get a picture of him with his award. Woo! Yes. Woo! Thanks, everybody. Congratulations, Dave. All right, now for John. All right.
Yeah, this one here, you just unplug this guy and all of its
Accoutrements.
I'll give him stuff later. Later.
There it is. Hopefully it'll work.
Hopefully it'll work.
Oh, here we go, right?
Worked on mine.
What did you have to do last time?
There we
There
go.
it is. Already did.
Great.
Now
Much
we
better
just- I
than
think we just
earlier
need to
I
today.
know, right? There we
Yeah.
go.
Perfect.
Sweet.
All right, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Do I need a microphone? All right, good. So I'd like to talk about beer finishing today. It is a big topic that I had difficulty trying to squeeze it into an hour. I'll do my best. But I'll try it. If I brush through some things and you want to talk about or get in more detail about some of the things I rushed through later, we can talk about that. This was originally like a talk just on filtration that lasted like 3 hours or something, so it's got a lot more than that. And like anything, the more deeper I went, the more I wanted to update and add some things to this. So beer finishing, and Shay's pun was not the first one you hear tonight. Clearly, a bright path to stable beer. Sick. This is how brewers spell bright, by the way, because light, same thing. There is no cheat. That's me. And that's the date. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to start here. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine to the 1990s. The grassroots movement that is craft beer. The beer you had to search far and wide to find an all malt beer back then. Back then I thought, okay, good beer was the stuff from Canada. You know, I thought it was stronger and better. But like you had to search for it. You had like, this is in Boston, by the way, at the brewery I started at, the Tremont Brewery in Charlestown, Mass. We opened in '93. This picture is probably taken '94, '95. I'm dating myself now. And that person you see here, does everybody know who this is? Michael Jackson, not the singer. Michael Jackson. But I wanted to start here when I talk about beer finishing and ultimately clear beer, because I want you to notice in here, oh, I have my laser pointer. I want you to notice, and it doesn't show up on the screen because it somehow, the laser goes into another dimension. I want to go in here. I want you to notice the pints of beer that we're enjoying with Michael Jackson, and I want you to take a look because that is cask conditioned beer, and there's Michael Jackson enjoying brilliantly clear cask conditioned beer because that's how it's supposed to be served, out of the cask. Unfiltered conditioned beer. We took we were all open fermented, British style, the whole thing, and it's a pale ale. And I don't think Michael Jackson would have it any other way. In fact, he said, "This delicious pint of cask conditioned Tremont bitter is brilliant." He loved it. And it's brilliant. And he had a big day that day after drinking a lot of beer through the New England states. And apparently the story was that my friend Peter Terhune was driving him around, touring through the state. He's checking out all the new craft breweries. There was like 3 back then, right? And there's a little more than that. There's maybe 3 in Vermont. And he ate a box of chocolates on the way down. Michael Jackson just loved things. So it was really cool to meet him. But I want to start there, and I don't want to digress too much because I'm prone to that. Because back then, if you didn't produce clear beer, you would not sell beer. As a matter of fact, being a brewer at a startup brewery, I did everything. You would deliver kegs, filter beer, you set up the next brew, every day. And so I'd go to the accounts. And I'd go to accounts trying to sell our beer into the accounts. And the accounts maybe they had Sam Adams, that was one craft beer they had. Maybe they had Harpoon, because Harpoon was starting up then. But they had mass, big produced beer, that's where it all was. And when you go to a place like, hey, we're this new brewery, Tremont Ale, we make a traditional open fermented English pale ale, it's all malt, it's really flavorful. And the proprietor would say, why the fuck would I want to sell your homebrew? Literally, that's what it was. And if we tried to sell in a beer that was hazy, it didn't look like all those other beers, we wouldn't get the account. So I started my brewing career filtering beer, chill stabilizing beer, doing a study in the 90s of how to make a chill stable beer that we could put into bottles. By the way, Tremont was the first brewery to bottle and package all of its beer in Boston since the 60s. Harpoon was contracting out somewhere else. Sam Adams was contracting out somewhere else. So it was pretty cool. It was a fun day, but like that's what I learned, and that's what I grew up on. And it's a different landscape now. And then you had the growth of craft beer, and we had that quality dip in the 90s. So people had unstable beer or stuff that was oxidized or whatever. I mean, it had to be clear, but we weren't measuring DO because we couldn't afford that, so it probably oxidized to all get out. Fortunately, we were local and pretty fresh. But anyway, what are the benefits of clear beer? There's a lot of them. Physical stability, consistent appearance for your customers. I always say it's a lot easier to make a clear beer stable than a hazy beer stable because gravity exists. Things will settle out and change. Most beers can be processed to be physically stable for upwards of a year. Even all malt beers, you can do this. Yeast breaks down over time. If that's hanging out in your beer, it can increase pH and change sensory attributes, namely hot dog water, that kind of stuff. No globs of yeast or protein in the bottom of your cans. I've seen it from producers. You pour the can out and like, bloop, there it goes. And even when packaged clear, though, things will change and break out over time, resulting in chunks. That's a misspelling. That was not, yes, I did not spell check. But you don't want chunks in your beer. So yeast removal. Have you tasted yeast? Did they taste it? It's pretty freaking bitter. So that's adding bitterness to your beer if you're not taking it out. Reduction of protein polyphenol complex, or polyphenols in general. Have you tasted tannins? You know, I know a big brewery around here somewhere that's producing a beer that we're working on. taking polyphenol content, changing that to make it taste the way it should. Have you tasted tannins? A lot of astringency, a lot of dryness, so can affect flavor. And why else? I see some maltsters here. Clear beer really showcases the wonderful colors of malt that our maltster friends work so hard to achieve. Thank you, Steve. And here's an amber ale. Craft beer packaged. I'm looking at that. Looks like swamp water. Most of you would say that's probably not acceptable. It's not chunky, but it's, I mean, most yeast is probably out. You could look at this and say, oh, that's pretty good. I could serve that. That looks all right. Pretty clear. But I'm talking about clear beer. I'm like, okay, now it's brilliant. Look at, these are all the same beer, like different stages or different processes, right? Like, look at that, the beautiful amber color of this beer. You can see through it. It's just a lovely thing. I want to drink that. And yes, we do. Like, yay, okay, drink that beer. All right, beer stabilization. When we throw around the word stabilization, brewers go, how do you stabilize beer? Well, we need to break it down into what kind of stabilization. There's microbiological stabilization, which you can achieve through pasteurization, sterile filtration. I'll talk about that later. You can add some sulfates or sorbates. You can do some other stuff to it. Chimer's on the rise here for doing stabilizing things. So that's one type of stabilization. Flavor stabilization, I'm not going to talk about all these because definitely not enough time to do all that. There's flavor stabilization, which has to do with oxidative shelf life, so we keep DOs down in our process, all that stuff. And then what I want to talk about today is physical stabilization of the resistance to change in appearance. So what are the mechanisms of haze in beer? The most obvious, biological haze. You got yeast hanging around in there, right? Or maybe, hopefully not, beer spoiling bacteria, or maybe bacteria you want in there could be hanging around. Of course, that can cause a biological haze. For the most part today, I'm talking about this. We'll talk about that a little bit, but mostly today I'm talking about non-biological chill haze, protein polyphenol complex. And inputs to that are primarily malt and hops. You know, the proteins primarily come from malt, polyphenol content primarily from hops, and these two things have an affinity for one another and they come together. Other things that are inputs to chill haze are oxygen content and metal ions in the process. So when we talk about physical stabilization, I'm talking about colloidal stability. Stability that is protein polyphenol complexes. And there's a number of different strategies of how to make it stable. Most namely, either removing one or the other. I'll talk about the things you use to do that. Cold temperatures promote the formation of chill haze. This is Coors, cold filtered, never heat pasteurized. Right, Dave? Yeah, Coors pioneered this way back when. I don't know when it was. Possibly before Dave's time, or was it during your time? Yeah, so Coors realized this, that if you could chill a beer down really cold and form that haze, and then filter at a really cold temperature and filter that haze out, you have a chill-stable beer, right? Cold filtration, that's what that is. It's preferably dropping that beer down below 0°C, forming that complex, dropping it down to a temperature that hopefully your customers will never get it down below that, so they won't see it, because it can go and reform and whatever. So without treatment, though, chill haze is present in beer, especially in all malt beers. It's present. And it will become permanent haze and visible at all temperatures eventually, unless you do something about it. And those haze-forming particles will, over time, fall out of solution and form chunks that will remain suspended or fall to the bottom of the package. I'm sure you've all seen this. I always ask my students this at CSU, who knows what sea monkeys are? And most people here probably know what that is. Yes, and I used to see the ads in the comic books all the time. Almost 100% of my students are like, what is that? I don't know what sea monkeys are. I explain that. I don't have to explain it to you. But I always say, oh man, you got some sea monkeys in your beer. They look like this. They're intelligent people who live in your fishbowl. And boy, when you see all this advertisement in a comic book, like you want to buy that. Because for only, it sounds great, send my sea monkey kits and my free supplies and guarantee 100% satisfied. And like, wow, that looks amazing. I did this with my daughter. Only $1.25. And that's what the sea monkeys really look like. They're brine shrimp. So when you're a kid, you get this like, oh man, they kind of smell. And they're not as interesting as I thought they would be. But this is what it looks like in beer. I've X'd out the brand here, but you can see breakout. And sometimes these settle out, sometimes they don't. We're going to talk about why. So we have things that about the same density difference, they might hang out. And that does not look too appetizing. I get with you, a hazy beer, like, okay, some people are on board, like, that's cool. A hazy IPA should be hazy. The hazy IPA should not look like this. It looks disgusting. In fact, this is what Schlitz looked like when they went out of business. Because Schlitz is doing a lot of stuff that we're all trying to do, make it more quickly, more efficiently. They were able to get their lagering process down from maybe 6 weeks to 4 weeks. I think they got it down to 10 days or 9 days.
What did they?
What was it?
And what did they do?
Yeah, what did they do? They started adding a lot of different stabilizers.
Right.
You tell us.
Well,
Yeah.
from what I remember, because I happened to be at Miller at the time, and they mixed, oh gosh, what was it? Silica gel and some kind of PVPP, and it did not work well.
Yeah, so they
Obviously
had the
did
right
not work
balance.
well. Yeah.
Not the right balance of chill stabilization.
Yes.
And it resulted in chunks, right?
Chunks.
Go back to my story of the 90s. The publican at the bar gets Schlitz, starts pouring at the bar. It looks like this. You're done. You're totally done. Beer back then should be clear, right? So be careful with stuff. Even the stuff I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk about silica gels and PVPP, but like you've got to dial it in. You can't just willy-nilly just throw that stuff in there and expect it to work. Every beer is different, and every little thing about those beers is going to change the way things behave. So there's a quick rundown of how chill haze works. I'm just trying to illustrate what happens with protein and polyphenols. You have what's in protein, proline-rich proteins, and polyphenols will bind directly to that site. So that's proline is the compound that polyphenols tend to latch onto. So here's beer in different stages of chill haze. This is a colder beer, a warmer beer. Still not brilliant. There's still chill haze in here. And this will go back and forth, cold, warm, cold, warm. That's how you can tell you got a chill haze. So how do you measure chill haze? A quick check is just to warm it up. So chill your beer down to 0C. There's a haze form. And I saw this on one of the forums recently, like a Facebook craft brewing forum somewhere. Somebody's asking, like, I got this haze. I don't know what's going on. What's happening? I think stuff's settling out. And is it yeast or not? I'm like, well, you can tell. Just chill it down. Do you get a haze? Yes, I do. Okay. Can you warm it back up? Pop it in the microwave for a bit. Just warm it up. Does it get clear again? You got yourself some chill haze. For sure. And Fiesta both most likely chill haze. So that's the easy test. If you want to get fancy, I did this back in the 90s when I tried to optimize chill stability in English Pale Ale, believe it or not, for packaging. Sent it off and worked with the supplier. Here's some suppliers here. I'm not being partial to anyone. I mean, representatives from every one of these suppliers. In no particular order. I didn't put one above the other. It's linear. You can pick, you leave it free from the right or the left, doesn't matter. But work with your suppliers, and they can help you, dial this in. Send sample of beer, get some analysis, and you can use what's called a Chapon cooling test, where ethanol is added. You can measure with a tonometer and get chill haze potential from your beer, and understand: is it polyphenols? Is it protein? What the heck's going on? And then the strategy is: how much do you use to drop the protein down, or how much of the polyphenols? Because the theory is you remove one or the other, you're having yourself a chill stable beer. Most likely you got a hoppy beer, dry hopped, you're going to be dealing with polyphenols. If you're dealing with a malty beer, chill and haze, okay, it's fat tire, malty, haze protein. So that's how you do that. Mechanisms, how do we clarify beer? So I'll get into some science theory stuff and talk about all these. And we gotta get ripping through this, man. This is good. Because we all want to go on tours. We're going to have a fun tour. By the way, last call, I just found out. I thought it was 7, but it's actually 8 o'clock tonight. Is last call. So everybody's like, thank God. These are a couple beers that our Vienna Lager from the Ramskeller Brewhouse that we finished not long ago. Look how beautiful the malt imparts color in a beer when you see it like this. Man, it's a glorious thing. Traditional methods, sedimentation, takes a lot of time. I'm going to get more detail here, tank capacity, etc. But the takeaway is Stokes' Law. I'll talk about that. And then we have centrifugation. It's expensive, variable turbidity, not capable of removing the small stuff. These colloidal particles are submicron. They are really tiny. So Stokes' Law, again. But there's ways you can do that. There's ways you can kind of get some tricky stuff with the centrifuge. And then filtration, which is the most common form of final beer filtration in commercial beer production. And filtration is Darcy's Law. I meant to bring that over space, but I forgot. All right, so mechanism of separation. So sedimentation. This could be a fermenter or a sedimenter. You know, this is a conical, cutaway of a conical fermenter, and depending on the size of your fermenter, I forget the height of what's the height of our fermenters here, like 50, 60 feet? 75? So 75 feet. So that's a long ways for a particle to settle down. So height is definitely a factor here in terms of how long it takes to drop particles out of your beer, which is why classical lagering, or in some processes, it's a big breweries that happen to be about 4 miles north of here, they might have something called a Beer tank, which is a long, not very tall tank, where you have less distance, quicker settling before filtration, for instance. So, variables in sedimentation are time, distance, particle diameter, density, viscosity of the liquid, and gravitational acceleration. So, I've always said, that's pretty much fixed here on Earth. If we start brewing on Mars, it's going to be a little different, so we're going to have to change our process a little bit. And I always say, like, if you want a stable, hazy beer, brew it and drink it in space. Because there's no gravity to affect that. You're going to have a nice, stable haze. So those are the variables that affect sedimentation time. And when we think about sedimentation in the brewery, not only in fermentation, maturation, but other things we can think about too. Malt storage, we see sedimentation. It's governed by this, where we have fines and chaff, like lighter things settling to the top of a silo. That's why at the end of the silo, you might get less extract in your brew. Lauter ton, when you start filling that, things settle out, heavier particle at the bottom, lighter ones on the top. Fermentation, maturation, certainly with yeast and all the stuff in there. Wastewater treatment too, the breweries, we think about sedimentation. So sedimentation is governed by Stokes' law. That's Stokes, 1851, comes up with this formula. So yes, if you know all these factors, you can calculate exactly how much time it's going to take for your beer to clear up. Have I done that? I'm not quite that nerdy yet, but I've thought about it. I know some people have done that. So the output is sedimentation velocity. I want to know how long it's going to take my fermenter to get clear. So I need to know all these different things. I need to know the particle diameter. Certainly the diameter of yeast is different than protein polyphenol complex. I need to know the particle density and the liquid density and the difference between it, because higher density difference is faster settling, right? So this is on the numerator. Think about bowling balls in water, settle pretty darn quick. Bowling balls in corn syrup, less density difference, settle more slowly. So difference between that. And then all this times gravitational acceleration, again fixed here, and then viscosity of the liquid on the bottom. So more viscous, slower settling time. Less viscous, higher settling. So on malt analysis, sometimes you can get viscosity and beta-glucans contribute to this. So I would look at beta-glucan to give yourself an idea how your filter cellar is going to run later on. Or just be preemptive and start throwing a lot of beta-glucanase in there or something. So I do hear from a lot of brewers, smaller brewers, like, okay, I put pressure on the tank and it settles faster. Intuitively, this kind of makes sense. Like pressure is going to push things together and make it bigger. But as far as Stokes is concerned, I don't see anything in there that has anything to do with pressure. But maybe pressure could affect one of these things in some way or be an influence. So I did a little research. Yes, it can. Pressure actually has an inverse relationship with viscosity. So higher pressure, higher viscosity. The inverse, I may have miswrote that. The higher pressure results in higher viscosity. So theoretically, higher pressure would reduce settling rate, not increase it. I'd love to see some papers on this or learn from any of you who have played with this, because I hear it again and again. I can get clear beer if I put pressure on my tank. Now, you're dealing with small tanks, so the dynamics might be different. We're dealing with 75-foot tanks, and the pressure on the bottom of that tank is at least a bar, probably almost 20 psi, just from the liquid column ahead above it. So in big tanks, you're always dealing with it. Small tank, 10 hectoliters, you have nothing, no pressure on there. So you put that on there, you're more imitating what's happening in a bigger tank when you do that. So I like to learn, and I'm curious about such things. So if anybody has any research on that, please let me know.
So Jeff, theoretically, then if you were to put a vacuum on your tank, you would
It would settle out faster. I never tried
pull
that.
the CO2 out. Where would you be?
Yeah, then you pull the CO2 out. You pull the oxygen out, might be a benefit.
That's true.
I'd like to see some, has anybody played with this? That's a cool idea.
Usually designed to go this way.
My entire career, I've been looking for a sponsorship to go on the Vomit Comet to do beer experiments and zero gravity. So if the MBAA has any extra money to send me on that thing, I really want to go. Okay?
We're not offering scholarships for
I'll report back. I'll bring you science. I'll do an article.
Send us an email.
I want to go. I'll send you an email. I want to go zero G. I will do vacuum. Okay. All right. Sedimentation. This is a. So again, this is strategy. Fermenters. This is a lager beer brewery in Czech Republic, in Český Krumlov that I visited. I went to the caves, and they have epoxy lined open fermenters. Beer was delicious, by the way. Perfectly clean, amazing Pilsner beer. But again, pretty short distance we're dropping, so they're able to clarify pretty quickly. So it is the primary means of separation in the cellar for most people. There's an advantage to sedimentation that you can achieve a lot of reduction in turbidity. It's not energy intensive in the traditional practice. So most brewers are going to do this to some extent or another. Disadvantages of long storage time. If you need to get some beer through your process and show an improvement in your cost of goods or whatever it is, like having beer tied up in tanks is not making you any money. So there's disadvantages to tying up beer there. Tying it up too long to wait for everything to sediment out, you could have yeast autolysis, beer loss. Beer loss is another big one too. Just waiting, you got to find that layer between the yeast and the beer, drain off. So some disadvantages to that. So here we go on the findings. How can we, and yes, all these are findings. All these pictures are the source of findings, believe it or not, because brewers are very creative people. And they'll pretty much throw whatever they want in the beer and try stuff out. So if you think you got something new you want to put in there, chances are somebody's already done it, but do it anyway. So primary sedimentation, primarily findings are like sedimentation processing aids. They leverage a factor in factors in Stokes' law to increase the settling rate. That's what findings do. So primarily by changing the difference in the particle size density and the diameter, it's going to result in faster settling velocity. So historical finding agents, again, brewers have tried everything. They've tried nylon, asbestos have been used, wood chips, carbon, all kinds of stuff like that. And we'll talk about, that's asbestos, by the way. So yeah, small particles, trying stuff out. They have different electrical charges that will connect with yeast, protein, polyphenol, what have you, right? So traditional findings, though, isinglass is the most common. That cask beer that Michael Jackson was drinking earlier was not vegan friendly. It had isinglass in there. Isinglass comes from the collagen of swim bladder of sturgeon fish. It's a byproduct of, I think, the caviar industry or maybe other industries. Isinglass has a net positive charge and interacts with yeast cells and proteins, which have a negative charge, and it generates large flocks. They can come together, they make bigger particles, and they settle out more. That's how isinglass works. You have to be careful with pH with isinglass. It kind of stinks a bit, but works very well, especially for cask beers. And it can increase the colloidal stability of beer as well. Gelatin is another traditional finding. So the picture earlier, there was a sturgeon up top, and then we have a bull, like a cow down below. I was going to put a horse, but that kind of brings up a lot of sadness for people. But gelatin is made from animal parts, okay? So, yeah, it works in a similar manner to isinglass. It's collagen, same thing, hooves and nails. Alginates, derived from brown seaweed primarily, can be used, and auxiliary findings in traditional British brewing can be used in combination with isinglass to drop out protein polyphenol, make that brilliantly clear best bitter that Michael Jackson was enjoying earlier. Bentonite clay, primarily wine clarification. It is negatively charged, so it's going to work on other things in there, primarily tannins and whatnot. So that's why it's used in wine, tannin complex. So these are traditional things that you can use and try. And in general, with overall filtration with finding with natural aids like this is really not required. And these days everybody's pretty we want to include vegans, everybody in the party. So best to label. If you're using isinglass, let people know. I think there's a list on the internet too. You can find out beers that are made with gelatin, isinglass, etc. So if you want to see what's in your beer, you should find that. And this, okay, here's my highly technical illustration of how isinglass works. Positively charged fish, negatively charged yeast drops out. And then we have tannins. So tannins can be used as a fining and a chill proofing aid. There's a number of different ones available from all the suppliers in here. We're talking about tannic acid, gallatannins. They remove protein, and the big ones nowadays are Brutan B, C, F, and MF. Brutan B is used for reduction of, I'm not going to get it, kettle fining is a whole other talk, but Brutan B could be used is used in the kettle for that, and can reduce your solids in the fermenter, can increase your roll performance. Brutan C primarily for your chill proofing in your aging cellar when you're trying to drop protein out. It can result in some fluffy tank bottoms. Interface, can be iffy. So if you're trying to drain and make a decision before it goes in the filter, think about that. I think it'd be highly suitable for centrifugation for beer recovery off of that versus a nice compact yeast bed. And then Brutan F can be used on your filter. And then you have Brutan MF, which is used for cross-flow membrane, optimized for that, which I'll talk about that later. So there's your tannins. Tannins used to drop out protein. And then also for dropping out protein, and this is most large commercial breweries are going to use this in some form or another. Silica gels would be the go-to. So silicas are selective for protein removal. They're selected specifically for proline-rich proteins, so you keep the foam retention and drop out the stuff that's going to cause you a chill haze. It's silicon dioxide, or SiO2. These are now available as silica sols, which is the liquid form of silica, and these are your Biofine Clear, Stabisol, and Nalco. These are all, again, I'm trying to include all the suppliers here, okay? So I've had a lot of success with all of them. Like anything, they need to be optimized, and the way the beer changes can change. So in my experience, I find that they work best after removing yeast. So crash tank down, take that yeast off within 48 hours, and then I'll squirt in my silica sol to help drop that clear. And that seems to work really well for me because I think that yeast, and I'd be looking for some expertise here from suppliers, but I believe that yeast the silica salt will interact with yeast. And certainly when you move to using hydrogels, zero-gels, these are used typically in maturation or post-fermentation stage in a tank that you're going to chill proof with, where you're going to leave it at a cold temperature for a specific amount of time to form that chill haze. And these will help drop that haze out and actually make it easier to filter out all those fine haze particles and make a colloidally stable beer. So hydrogels have a lower moisture content than silica sols, and zero gels are very fine powders that are used right at the filter. Hydrogels I've had a ton of experience with in my past, and those can be used before filtration or after fermentation. Really easy to work with. They're not dusty, and minimal contact time too. Sometimes down as low as 20 minutes, and you've got a chill stable beer with those. The classic ones, ChillGuard, Bright Sword 100. I think they're the same name now. It's the same thing. By PQ Corp, who makes that. I actually had, when I was at Siebel, I had the pleasure of touring a silica gel plant in Illinois with one of the AV brewmasters back then. It was really cool to see how they make this stuff. That gel belt, really, really cool. So I got a relationship with them, and even being a small brewery that was making 5,000 barrels a year, I got to work with them to stabilize that pale ale I was talking about, which is pretty cool. Then we go to PVPP. Somebody mentioned that earlier, polyvinyl polypyrrolidine. Earlier, brewers were using something called PVP, which does not have the extra P on it, and PVP is actually carcinogenic, and it was outlawed from using in beer. Now it's PVPP, and your names Divergen, Polyclar. They're insoluble in water, and your silica sols are, and they must be filtered out. I would say any of these things, really, best practice for anything you start using silica, best practice would be to filter these out, or at least dose them upstream of your finished beer vessel, because you're giving your customers these things. I want to call that out. Even the silica sols that everybody just tosses in there, best practice is to remove those. If you can't remove them with the filter, highly suggest putting them in your primary or some step, like I'm saying, not best practice to add in your bright tank.
I think the TTB actually says that you should put it through some sort of
Some sort of filtration. That is, and some of your suppliers are going to say that too. So yeah, best practice in DTB, like you need to remove this stuff from your beer. For sure. Certainly these things. This is kind of a gray area because many brewers, all the small brewers have latched onto this. So thank you for bringing that to attention. I preach it and like, yeah, but at the very least, try and do it earlier. Try and let that stuff settle out before you serve it to your customer. So PVPP precipitates tannin. So if you got a really hoppy, dry hop beer with a ton of tannins in it, PVPP is your go-to. That needs to be hydrated, can be used at the filter. Definitely needs to be filtered out. I see this stuff being repackaged and sold to home brewers all the time. It's plastic, essentially. It's a byproduct of the oil refining industry. In fact, BASF makes it. And so, yeah, you don't want that in your beer. You need to filter it. I'm saying it right now. Filter that shit out. It's great stuff, but filter it out, please. Yeah, so it precipitates tannins by having a similar structure to protein. And then there's enzyme treatment as well. The classical proteolytic enzyme treatment is papain. Papain is non-selective, so be aware you may be losing foam retention on your beer. Does a great job. It's going to break all that stuff apart. So it comes from papaya. It's non-selective, so maybe I already said that. It will definitely enhance physical stabilization by removing proteins. Non-selective is just going to break all that shit down. And there's Brewer's Clarex as well, which targets protein-rich proteins and also reduces gluten. In preparing this, I was trying to update some slides. I came upon a really awesome, pretty interesting study that was done showing that beers treated with silica gels and zero gels and hydrogels also showed gluten down below 20 ppm because the gluten is associated with proline-rich protein. So there may be other ways that you could claim, reduce gluten content using things other than enzymes. And I'm not knocking Clarex; it's great stuff, works awesome. I will call out though, and my own personal opinion, if you're using any enzymes on the cold side and don't have the ability to denature them, I'm saying specifically through flash pasteurization or tunnel pasteurization, you got to realize that you're leaving active enzymes in your beer, which will continue to be active in your package. So if you're sending your beer far and wide and not keeping an eye on it, you can have many changes happen over time in that beer. Physically, yeah, go ahead.
Isn't Clarex used on the hot side though?
Yeah, you can use that on the hot side too. I guess people use it on the cold side. Yeah, Clarex can be used on the hot side. I see people use it in the mash, in the kettle. I also know people use it on the cold side, so I want to call it out. The hot side would be better.
Its active temperature range is a bit lower on the cold side. So
Okay.
I think that's more common for these specific proteins.
Can you still find papain enzyme? I mean, do they still even have that?
I had to mention it because some old brewer in my Siebel class mentioned it too.
Yeah, I probably mentioned it.
You probably mentioned it too.
So back to my lab test when we were looking for that.
Yeah. I think used in other industries, like, I don't know anybody who's using papain, but because
very
there's,
common in the UK.
in the UK?
Yeah.
Using it?
Yep, in the UK.
Okay, there you go, so it's still around. It's worth mentioning, even from a historical perspective, because in brewing, everything kind of comes around, goes around again, and it comes back up again, and like, oh yeah, we did that, and like, why are you doing that? Or, here you go, like, let's see what happens, So, it's good to bring these things up. So, but yeah, it's great for, if you got some stomach upset or whatever, helps digestion, it's good for you. So yeah, I like to bring that up. So whether any kind of enzyme, amylases, whatever you got, denature those things because your beer's hanging out, changing. It's going to change anyway, but now you got enzymes changing it. Like, just be aware. So that brings me to centrifugation. All right, let me get this out in the tours here. Yeah, so centrifugation. I have a lot of history of centrifugation here in New Belgium with some of my coworkers doing a project way back. Way back, so I'll give you some context how we get started with that. First off, I want to say centrifugation is not filtration. I see this used all the time. Like, I'm filtering it with a centrifuge. Like, stop that. This is a trigger for me. Like, I don't want to do this. It's not filtration. It separates solids from liquid by increasing the settling velocity of particles. Remember the gravity thing in Stokes? That's the centrifuge, leveraging that number times gravity. So there you go, the gravitron, right? So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but if you want to talk centrifuges, I was a huge centrifuge nerd for a long time, so we can talk that if you want. Actually, really inspired by what Dave and everybody was doing at Coors with the centrifuge way back when. That was, we went for a tour, like, what are you doing with the centrifuge? Because one of our coworkers, it was Bill Hatton, was like, hey, other breweries have a centrifuge. Why don't we? And back then at New Belgium, you ask a question like that, somebody's going to dive in like, well, I don't know, let's figure it out, you know? So we went on a tour of Coors, saw the centrifuges, and we're like, wow, that's pretty cool. So,
Back then, dissolved oxygen was a problem with centrifuges way back then.
I'm sorry?
DO
problems. Yeah, that's the big challenge with centrifuges for sure. So I know a number of brewers here have these, and there's ways you can deal with the DO, have it running right. I think primarily giving a consistent input, feed, pressure, and flow is key to that, and having it programmed properly. But operating principle is Stokes' law. Gravity is replaced by centrifugal force, centrifugal force, and these generate 4,000 to up to 5,000 to 8,000 times the force of gravity. So that is huge. So it settles shit out really quick. Works great. Works really great on big particles, especially yeast. You send yeast, even large concentration of yeast that's not going to make it through. So benefits, disadvantages. I don't need to read all these, but benefits, recovering beer from yeast. That was the first and number one reason why New Belgium got into this, was to save extract and to delay millions of dollars of tank capacity. Because we were getting ready to build another tank farm to increase our capacity. Money was tight because we're growing like double digits every year, and we were looking for all kinds of ways to do that. Fermentation time was a project. Recovering beer from yeast, could we do that? Yeah, we did that, and we cut our losses way down. Separation of dry hops, which we do now. Lots of brewers are doing that. You can reduce your fermentation cycle time. Standardize your cell count and maturation. That's what Coors was doing way back when. Have standard cell count in there, something predictable for the filter and finishing lines. Reduction aging tank time. You can make clear beer with a centrifuge. And I know Brewery next door does a great job of doing that. And it removes a lot of yeast. It can be tricky to get to the smaller particles, but if you do it in combination with things like silica gels and get tank time and temperatures, you can produce a really nice beer. So we tried doing that here. It was hard to get under 1 EBC with just a centrifuge, but you can get them built just for that. And side byproduct we didn't expect is like you're actually cleaning your CIP chemicals too. So when you go to clean that thing, like, oh, you can start reusing your CIP more. So there's some good environmental things there. And you can harvest yeast with it. I know some breweries that did this. The ejected yeast coming out, they harvested it, reused it. We did some tests here, and just very slight change in viability, vitality. And yes, yeast can survive 5,000 Gs, which proves that it is the superior organism. And that's another talk. And then disadvantages, of course, really expensive, high maintenance. When you got awesome maintenance people, like some of ours sitting back there, I'm looking at, like, I make it easy. Noise levels can be high. Not so great at removing chill haze. High DO, as Dave mentioned. Infrastructure to properly deliver beer to centrifuge, proper pumps, inlet pressure, etc. Handling discharge. And then pretty good environmental impact if you get, unless you get creative with hood cooling, recirculating stuff. One of the things we did here, like a lot of water use, a lot of electric use. I mean, the motors on these are huge horsepower. I forget, I think it was just like 60, 70 horsepower, something like that. Is it bigger? How much is it, Casey? 100 horse on the motor. And I saw the one up at AB, the big one. I don't even know what that thing was huge. It was intimidating. That's pretty cool. So simple centrifuge. Oh, I have a demonstration of how a centrifuge works. But first, I'll show you a really simple centrifuge. Looks like this. Complete sanitary design. I took this picture outside a Saison DuPont brewery, and it's on a farm, and I'm sure they're using this for making cheese and separating curds in the right way. And here you have the belt, and then the horse is going around in the circle, cranking the belt around, you know. So that's a simple centrifuge with an inlet, stuff coming out, separate curds and whey. But I have a cool animation that I stole from somewhere on the webs that shows how it works. So it's really sedimentation, right? It's Stokes' law. So if you think about a liquid stream coming in, and this is how a wastewater treatment plant works, by the way. You have particles coming in, and you can design your plant so that the flow rate takes exactly the right amount of time for those particles to settle out before it spills out the other side. Now you have clarification. That's exactly how a wastewater treatment plant is going to work to remove solids. Take my students up to the water source up here every year, and we see this, how they have the weirs. And the weirs add more surface area and less distance, like this, these plates, so that it sells out more quickly, so you can do this more efficiently. So you add more plates. In a centrifuge, you have like 400 of these plates, right? So that's how it works. So if you turn the whole thing up on its side, magically somehow, I never tied this out right.
There we go.
There you go. That's what the centrifuge does. So you bring the liquid in here, it comes around, you have a small settling distance up to these plates for the small particles that are too light to make it to the outside. These help with that efficiency. Spin it around, you got gravity, everything concentrates in the corner, and you open it up for a millisecond, and boom, you shoot the solids out. So that's how that works. That's what it looks like on the inside. If you haven't seen one, there's your big-ass motor. And then driving a belt on this, some are direct drive, spindle, holding the whole thing together, and then you have essentially this thing that weighs a couple tons spinning at 4,000 some odd RPM, and liquid coming down in here, splitting off. I got my pointer, I can do that. And splitting off. That's right, it doesn't work. Short memory span. It's getting there. So yeah, thank you for that. So solids start to collect here, and then through a really cool engineering, this water piston will open it up and shoots it out. It collects. That's the big shot that you hear there. It's pretty cool. And then you can optimize that. This is a proprietary video that I stole from Westphalia that I'm not supposed to have, so can't show you that.
Don't worry.
Yeah, it just shows you it's a cutaway thing. No, they were like, we made these drawings exactly the specs, so you could like build your own centrifuge if you measure every part of it. But this just shows how that kind of spins around as a shot and all that stuff. We doing okay. This is showing the water piston and how that works. I'm not going to get into all that, but really cool how that works, keeping the water out, and then it'll open this bowl up. Anyway, solids coming out, and it's going to shoot out the side, whatever. Okay. It needs some music to go with that. And it's filling up the water piston, and then, okay. And so you evacuate, and then it shoots. There you go. Yay. It's shooting out your green, slushy lime milkshake beer. There you go. All right. Anyway, so some of the things you can do with this is recover yeast from beer. And we asked that question and measured the beer coming off yeast. We did GC analysis on it. We did sensory analysis on it, blending it back. Passed sensory, passed everything. So yeast slurry contains a minimum of 50% beer. It's not just yeast. So you start thinking about that in scale. You can save a lot of money. Reduce your yeast drains, etc. So here's all the quality parameters you got to measure, whatever. So, and that's our first centrifuge. It's shiny and new. What's next here? Okay, moving on. Filtration. I like French press coffee. That's a filter. One day I'll put a pressure gauge under here, and like over here I can measure my filter efficiency. But you ever grind your coffee grind up too small, and you're like, I can't push it down. Yeah, that's this. So variables for filtration are surface area of the filter, the permeability of the filter bed, the particle size, your grind of the coffee. Differential pressure are variables, difference between below and above the filter septum. Viscosity, again, changes filtration. So again, think beta-glucans. Bed depth as well will change that. So you put too much coffee in there, it's going to be really hard to push down. And filtration in the brewery, again, we see it in water treatment. We see it in water tons. So when I talk to the students about this, we look at the manometer, pressure differential on the water bed. We talk about how to optimize that and control our flow rate based on the suction pressure differential between that bed. There's all the places you're going to see it. And so the Darcy equation describes all this, and this is Darcy about a few years after Stokes. Darcy says, okay, I can describe filtration with this. So if you know this, you can design a filter to meet your needs. So it's described in terms of throughput, how much you can get through the filter, in terms of hectoliters an hour or barrels per hour, and then your variables are permeability of the bed, which you'll see in DE filtration. You can change very easily by selecting different grades of DE. And you all know it in the water ton, when you have a coarse grind, you're lautering, you have a great day. It goes really well at the expense typically of extract. Or if you grind too low and you're like, I want to bring the extract up and make more money, reduce the cost of goods, then you're like, you had a long day, possibly have an underlet, reset that filter bed. So permeability is either grind or DE, etc. Pressure drop over the filter divided by, and your times your particle size, and then divided by viscosity times bed depth. So the deeper the bed, more resistance to flow throughput, and viscosity as well. Higher viscosity, lower throughput. So that's where the beta glucans come in. So what are we separating there on the filter? I already kind of went over this. In beer, the main variables in beer are viscosity, density, and temperature. So it's important to remember this, that as we cool beer down to a certain temperature, it becomes more dense. We know that, right? Cold liquids are more dense than hot liquids. As we cool down to an approach around 4C, we get a shift in that density, and the density will actually start to decrease under 4C, which is why you get a flip in your tanks, and that's how you can manage tank cooling. But also with filtration, it's important to keep it under 4C, again, preferably down -1 before you come into the filter. So those are the things we have to play with our beer primarily. And then solids we're separating our yeast, protein polyphenol complex, which filters are very effective at removing, and microorganisms, which some filters can guarantee a removal of beer spoiling microorganisms as well. And the different terms, I won't get into all these, but if you start talking filters, you're going to talk about the concentrate, which is the incoming feed stream, the retentate, retaining solids, filtrates, the stuff going out, and the permeate, which is the filter medium itself, whether that be DE or usually it refers to DE, it could be sheets or what have you. Made this nice chart a while back just to show you what we're dealing with in terms of size. If you're most familiar with yeast, it's around 0.5 micron up to 10 micron or so. Some yeast are chain formers and can clump together, make bigger sizes, so that's what we're dealing there. Very easily removed by filters, very effectively removed by centrifuges that are operating well, etc. DE has a bigger particle size as well, but can be leveraged as it's compacted as a tortuous path. We can filter down with DE, sometimes down to a micron or below, and able to do that. Bacteria all over the place, but you see beer spoiling bacteria pretty much stops around 0.5 micron or so. So that's about the size of lactobacillus if it's coming head on at you is about 0.5 micron. So if you can filter under that, you can guarantee sterile beer. And then protein polyphenol complex, sub-micron. So this stuff's not easy to get out. But there are ways to do it. Now I know there's a lot of dogma around filtration, about flavor changes, all this stuff. I mean, the reality is I like to see some scientific sensory on that as well. I believe most of it is dogma. Most beers, in my mind, depending on the beers, certainly some should be made hazy IPAs, but in terms of filtered lagers, filtered beers, the flavor tends to have more finesse, less polyphenols, cleaner, etc. I, in my own experience, have not noticed significant changes in beer flavor profile unless you get really low, like under 0.5 micron, and yes, and I've measured it, you can start to strip out bittering compounds and some hop compounds, but that's well below what anybody's going to get with its sheet filters, where they're going to operate like around here, around 4 to 5 micron or so. And I'll talk a little bit about absolute and nominal filtration. So don't be afraid of this. Try it out. It works. It's not going to ruin your beer or change your beer. So a few types of filters: surface filters, depth filters, and depth filters through absorption of particles. Again, we're trying to keep the DO out. And then sometimes after DE filtration, we might employ trap filters to capture any DE diatomaceous earth that might make its way through. Or we may go on and have like sterile filtration in line with that, which I used to do at Avery Brewing Company, by the way, when I was over there running things. I was doing a DE filtered followed by a sheet filter to bring the particle load down. Again, this is, just post 90s, it was at 2001, 2000 or so, and we're making clear beer. And trying to stabilize it as well, microbiologically. I won't get into this too much, but it comes into play a little bit later on if you want to. Is anybody doing sterile filtration here? Okay, yeah, John's doing it, and some others. Cool. Doing it. Okay, great. Yeah, so sterile membrane, I want to bring this up because the sterile filter is an absolute filter, and to qualify as an absolute filter, you need to do something called an integrity test. So it's a water bubble test on there. It should be holding a certain amount of pressure against water. If you're not doing that, probably, it may not be guaranteed sterile. Most filters are nominal, meaning they're going to say it's 0.5 micron plus or minus whatever, so you're not guaranteed everything's going to get out. I'll show you a picture of this on the cartridge filters later on. Sterile filters are typically of a cartridge type to get you down there to be absolutely sterile. And depth, whatever, I'm not going to get into too much, but depth filter, tortuous path going through versus a surface filter, these are how it looks differently. And the DE filters are more like depth filters. I'll show you some DE in a little bit. Cartridge filters, sheet filters like this, tortuous path, you get either cellulose fibers or DE or polypropylene spun to capture particles. A polyethyl sulfone sterile filter has a guaranteed pore size, thank you, that's no bigger than 0.45 or half a micron. So with crossflow filters, membrane filters, depleted cartridge filters, they fit into this category. Blah, 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 blah. That's how you work a DE filter. Come talk to some people. Matty knows how to run DE filter really well. He commissioned our first DE filter way back when. So thanks for that. That's right around I was hired. You're getting that thing going. To talk about DE a little bit, as a filter aid, it is the fossilized remain of ancient sea plants, plant life, calcified remains. I hear people saying, it's bones, oh my God, you're going to filter our bones. Like, no, it's not bones. It's mined, so it does have environmental impact. They do stuff to it. The main thing with it, you got to look and understand the iron content of it, because iron's bad for beer oxidation and physical stability. So under 30 ppm, get Z grades. And then there's perlite, which is cool because it doesn't have any iron in it. It's a volcanic origin versus diatoms. And this is a close-up of what diatomaceous earth looks like with yeast cells embedded in it. It's a tortuous path, has a large void space, it's excellent for filtration. You can customize it for any type of beer you need, from an imperial stout to a light pilsner. You can come up with a DE recipe to meet all of your needs. And that's the beauty of it. The downside is there's the waste from it. Here in the States, we have a lot of places that we can deposit DE that gets deposited wherever, which isn't great. In Europe, it's fallen out of favor because there's no place to do that. Tony's got his hand up, and I'm going to guess what you're going to comment on. Go.
And there is a safety factor involved with that. It is a hazardous material.
Yes.
It shows up on the toxic list.
Yeah, it is a known carcinogen. So when it is airbound and dust, it will cause silicosis in your lungs, right? And so you
Not
need
silicosis, but a form that's
the form of that.
a
Thank you.
similar.
Yeah, so you need to wear a respirator. You should do particle analysis around the filter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When it's not in its dust form, you might find diatomaceous earth in different types of textured paint. You might find it in your tooth whitening toothpaste. You might find it in the home and garden store to keep the slugs out, right? So, but if you have that, it is a powdered form. Don't inhale it. So you do want to use a respirator around that, a proper respirator, right? Thank you for that. Another close-up of diatomaceous earth. And then there's perlite, shards of glass, volcanic glass. Same kind of idea. That's our filter that Matty commissioned way back when. I won't go in the depth of these. There's lots of different types of DE filters. We have two here at New Belgium. We have a horizontal leaf filter, which is great for small runs and minimize losses. And then candle filter we have as well, which you need some water to push through, recover all your beer, constant flow, etc. And then there's plate and frames. So blah, blah, blah. It's the same slide twice. There you go. Small brewers might use something like this. This is what I started out with. It's a wine filter, so you need to, and some of our suppliers may still be able to supply this. Customer I'm thinking of, possibly ATP. When you do use these for beer, identify the points of oxygen, drill a hole in here, put a carb stone in there to get the oxygen out. And they work by dosing DE and blending with the beer on its way through the filter to maintain permeability. So be aware of the oxygen control you need there around that. Cutaway view of a horizontal filter. Cool. Vertical leaf filter, it looks a lot like the ones I have up at AB. The advantage here is they're leveraging surface area in Darcy's law, so you get the front and back of the plate covered, so twice as much surface area in the same amount of size. Whereas this, you can only build up a filter bed on the top because the flow is down and then through. Okay? So different types of things leveraging it, part of Darcy's law there. And then a candle filter where you have these candle tubes hanging down that have slots in them. And then this also leverages surface area in Darcy's law because as you're filtering, you're building up more DE around the tube and increasing surface area as that DE cakes on the tube. So as you're filtering more, you're changing the surface area of the filter. So cool design. But really good for like long filter runs, not short brand changes. And then this filter press, which New Belgium had before my time even. You may have operated it, Maddie operated this. And this is similar to a sheet filter, but you use sheets and DE at the same time. Going through there, filter press. And then there's sheet filtration, which I do over at the Ram Skeller. You can get, the sheets are usually made of cellulose, DE, sometimes other stuff. They may be charged electrically to have an electrical potential to help remove some things. Many of you get down to half a micron, so pretty darn close to sterile. They call it a half because it's not absolute, but it's pretty darn close. So have a good microprogram. But there's no guarantee it's absolutely sterile. That you can backwash these, you can use them for multiple runs as long as you've got differential pressure left, and you can have a zeta potential on there for removing micro. That's the flow path. There you go. Come stop by the Ram Skeller, I'll show you how it works. And then cross-flow filtration. I don't know who that well-dressed person is from way back when. I was at Drink Tech and got to visit a cross-flow membrane, one of the first membrane filter plants in Germany at the time. It was a Nordic system back then. And widely used in the wine and cider industries, can be used for recovery of beer from tank bottoms or other places in the process. You can recover wort from Trube with cross-flow filters. Our friends at Scrumpy Cider down, Summit Hard Cider, Scrumpy Cider down the street, she has, Jennifer has a small cross-flow filter over there for doing cider, and she'll tell you how it costs the same amount as her first house. So media are typically polyethyl sulfone membranes or ceramic media. These are typically 0.2 micron nominal, so it is, you think it would be sterile, but again, it's not, no guarantee, but pretty darn good. And when I talk sterile, I'm thinking 0.0000. That's my notes from Siebel showing how that works, but essentially instead of going straight through the membrane, you have a membrane, you have feed going across with particles in it, and then you have a higher velocity going across the membrane, lower velocity going through, so you build up this concentrate that you have to eject eventually. That concentrate is not as concentrated as what you might see on the centrifuge, but works pretty well, and these can be automated. So you like hit a button, filter that tank overnight, come back, and like, oh, it's done. Beautiful. So that's what some of the media looks like for like a ceramic one versus the tubes, polyethyl silicone, blah, blah, blah. I'm ripping through this thing now. And then cartridge filters, which I didn't want to dismiss, because that English Pale Ale that I did, not only did we chill stabilize it, but before packaging, we sterile filtered it. That was tradition out east to make sure we had a microbiologically stable beer. And by the way, we were open fermented, and I did microcontrol. We were clean. So again, there's a belief that open fermented beer is wild fermentation. That is complete bullshit. Total bullshit. Miller Brewing used to open ferment their beer up until 70s, 80s maybe, right?
Until when I was there, I started in 75, so what's that tell you?
Yeah, were they doing it then?
No, just
Before then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you could.
They were doing it.
Yeah. So anyway, sterile filter in the beer, out of a bright tank before packaging. Another way, just make sure your beer is clean going in. So we would go through a 0.75 and a 0.65 using cartridges much like this. And the real sterile filter will have a 99.99% retention rate of anything above 0.45 microns. So you're guaranteed nothing getting through there. 0.65 would be good enough for most people, but lacto could technically get through there. This is what it looks like, nominal. Soil going into the surface of everything versus absolute, it's just on the surface. It's an absolute trap for everything. And that's all I got. Any questions? That might be me bowing before the gates of lager, lovely beer in Pleasant, perhaps. So, thanks. Tom.
Could you go back to like maybe the second or third slide?
Oh. Let's go. There's probably a faster way to do this.
Start from there.
What are you looking for?
Simple question for you. You had a couple of items there. They were like, they were a filtration method or what?
That guy.
No, go.
Filtration. No, you're in filtration. You're talking.
I'll have to check up with you later.
All right. There we go.
It almost looked like they had a little trademark next to them.
Oh yeah. So that was for microbiological.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Valcorin and Kyber. Yep, that's right.
See, I know about biocline and some of those things. And by the way, I do this talk at the Master Brewers, which maybe you should, Jeff, because you really covered it well. But where are those two items?
So these would be for microbiological stabilization. So Valcorin is something somebody can pull up to your brewery or your beverage plant and inject this nasty stuff in there that would inhibit any kind of microbial growth. I don't know exactly how it works.
There's an MBAA safety bite on.
MBAA safety on Valcorin.
Well, I didn't hear what they said, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm partially deaf.
there's an MBAA safety podcast on Valcorin.
It's
Food safety bite.
Food safety.
It's also something that is really, really pH dependent. So you have to be under, I think it's like 4.2 pH to have microbial efficacy.
Okay.
You also have to, it breaks down into water and methane. So you have to measure methanol as well.
Got it.
This first I've seen it, so it's just curious.
I know my first exposure to it was in commercial cider production.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where I first heard of Valcorin. And then Kyber is like the newest thing. It comes from mushrooms. And some students were playing around with that stuff. So for to inhibit microbiology.
Can I make one other comment? And that is, one, you need a centrifuge with high caustic in order to clean well. That's my opinion.
Absolutely.
And number two, when you're CIPing with high caustic, it cleans up your caustic for you.
Absolutely.
So you get so.
Another benefit.
I had explained that to the corporate engineers at Miller, and they were like, huh?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what you gotta do.
We're saving chemicals. Saving chemicals. No, it's great.
Dan is back there going,
Dave's like, no, more chemicals. I love it. Boo to centrifuges. Dane has a question.
Changing gears a little bit. Now, the pressure thing with Stokes, wouldn't that be Henry's Stokes? Henry's Law and Stokes in kind of combine those two? Wouldn't it be Henry's Stokes Law?
Well, if you combine it, it must be. Yeah, Henry's Law and Stokes.
We need to get AI on that.
Totally get AI on that. So, David, that's funny. So, yeah, David referred to Henry's Law, which describes solubility of gases in solution on pressure and temperature. So, something's going on there. Maybe increase the pressure. You got more CO2 solution. Maybe that changes things with settling. I like Stokes Henry Law.
Stokes Henry Law.
We should do a talk about that.
It's a new one.
I like it. Yes.
And Jeff, one thing I'll bring up with settling too, I especially see it with colloidal silica, is any sort of convection currents within a tank where there's temperature differentiation, you're actually causing small convection currents in there. So sometimes I have places with different tank geometry, and they're like, hey, I'm struggling with this, and the outside of their tank is colder than the inside of their tank. It's actually causing these currents, and as the particles are getting larger, the larger ones can settle out, but the smaller ones will stay in solution because they continue on these convection things.
That's a really good
So you can kind of troubleshoot that by just simply measuring the temperature in different portions of your tank, especially if it's a large tank like you guys have here.
Big tanks, we have like what, four jackets on them.
Yeah.
And then there's some complicated control programming around all that. But even in small tanks, the tanks that the Ramscaler don't even have a jacket. It's just like a plate in the back.
Yep.
And that's like, it's kind of a nightmare.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Any other questions, comments, or anything?
Okay, quick question.
John?
You said you centrifuge yeast down. Did you check viability and vitality, or just viability?
I don't remember. I know we definitely did viability.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great question. I had to go back and do some.
But it worked, right?
Yeah. I mean, the yeast was still good. We didn't actually use it, but I do know some breweries. I won't mention them. One's in Belgium. One might be in Canada that have employed this in harvesting yeast from centrifuge. I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but
Subsequent generations.
it would be, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an opportunity for a test. You guys have a centrifuge, like try it out, hold it, eject the matter out, see what happens. Yeah.
You cannot stop the rider.
No. Okay. All right, any other questions? So we want to break out for tours. So we have some New Belgium folks here that have agreed to feed all you folks. I'm going to lead a tour. Maddie's to lead a tour. And we have Storm back there who will also lead a tour. Who else do we have for tours? Casey, do you want to do a tour? Like Casey could do a tour.
I'll talk.
Rob, do you want to do a tour?
Can you mention that we're
So before we do that, so I want to organize the tours real quick. Listen up. Listen up. So we have a New Belgium event going on in here at 8 o'clock. So we need to vacate this room. So anything you have, we're gonna and our gracious MBA leadership team and hosts will be helping move stuff to the room next door, which we call the bamboo room. So we need to get your stuff out of here before you go out on a tour, okay? You don't have to go on a tour. If you want to go get another beer, whatever, that's cool. So we have 4 or 5 people leading the tour. We don't have time to do the whole brewery, so I'm suggesting we do specific areas. I would love to volunteer to show up. Happy to show you the filter cellar, do some CIP stuff, and maybe some cellar stuff if you want to see it. If you want to see that stuff, come with me. We can maybe have a couple people do that. We have a lot of interest. And then,
yeah, I'll do packaging, and then we're actually doing a run out because that meeting's coming in here.
Oh, you doing that?
So they're going to do run out, close up about 7:45. So we want to hit packaging and see some action.
Yeah. Who wants to go to packaging? Give a sword. Anybody packaging? Sword over here. It's pretty awesome, and they're running. So packaging over here. And then, who would like to see brew houses? Maddie's got the brew house. Go see the brew house, go with Maddie. On the brew house. And then, wherever. I know where you guys want to go. We're trying to get it like maybe 5 or 10 people each. It's chaos. I know it's pretty Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So yeah, Maddie on the brew house, infiltration. There's a lot of